Next up, Nebraska is home to an array of agricultural characteristics which all come into play when estimating land values. The 2020 Nebraska Farm Real Estate Report was published and provides insight on trends in ag land values along with rental rates. Market Journal's Bill Dodd recently caught up with ag economist Jim Jansen to get some of the highlights from this year's report.
The biggest thing to keep in mind when perusing the farm real estate market highlights is the fact that there are certain limitations to the survey that is used to gather information for this report. More specifically, it's not intended to set precise rental rates or address other related legal matters. However, it is an informative educational tool that depicts how agricultural land values and rental rates may vary in different regions of the state. While there are limitations on the survey process, there was a bit of an extra curve thrown this year with the COVID-19 pandemic, which may have caused some fluctuation in reported rental rates and land values.
Future land values might deviate from that given the pandemic COVID-19 events surrounding that, but at least at the estimates we placed as of February 1, we estimated land values to be up slightly. The other thing that we're seeing related to long-term debt, market prevailing interest rates is historically low. And we would note the 10-year Treasury yield rate is around 1 to about 0.5% right now, which is not indicative of what land loans are going for, but it is an indication that historic interest rates for a long period of time, 10, 15, say even 30 years, they're setting some of the lowest real rates we've seen in recent history. So that's another factor that's leading to land values either being steady or slightly increasing.
The survey monitored different land classes across the state, and one key finding was that dry land cropland, as well as center pivot irrigated land, was up slightly across the state with the exception of the Northwest and Southwest districts. Still, with other potential variables and the effect that COVID-19 has had on commodity and livestock prices since the survey, Jim tells me there may be some fluctuation in current prices and rates.
We noted slight declines around 3, 4, 5%. In the Northwest as well as the Southwest districts, which is set apart a little bit. Some of the survey responses came in that there was a certain degree of concern related to specialty crop production in that area. And that being said, some of those specialty crops are raised on irrigated acres. Like I said, the survey period in which we were conducting this, we estimated, the market value is always estimated at a period in time. And at that period in time, we estimated it up slightly. Now, given COVID-19 and the effects we're seeing on commodity and livestock prices, it'll be possible we might see land values head in a different direction. But the one thing I can say is we like to see gradual changes in the market value of assets instead of the extremes, either up or down.
Cash rental rates were reported to be steady to slightly higher on average across the state. However, on irrigated land, these reported rates are under the assumption that the landowner is providing the entire irrigation system. If that's not the case, some rates may be adjusted down to reflect the contributions of the renting party.
Thing to note on center pivot or gravity irrigated assumes that the rental rates reported assumes that the landlord or the land owning entity that's renting the ground out provides the entire irrigated system. So in the example for center pivot irrigated cropland, that includes the pivot, the pump, and the power unit. If the tenant provides any of those components, you would adjust the rent down because the tenant's required to either provide upkeep or acquire or whatever it might be. In those cases, we would see a cash rental rate be deducted maybe 10 to 15 bucks an acre, $10 to $15 to account for the fact that the tenant is providing those improvements.
On the other side of the coin, as it relates to production in our state, we have grazing land. The report highlights rates on a per acre basis. However, Jim tells me that he tends to get more calls about monthly rates for one cow, one calf pair per month during the summer grazing season. When determining an agreeable price for both parties involved on grazing land, there are several other things that need to be taken into consideration.
For one cow, one calf for 1 month during the summer grazing season, we had rates reported around $50, give or take a few. The big thing on grazing land, it goes to the point, who's maintaining the improvements associated with that grazing land parcel? The big concerns that we have reported are fencing, water source. So if you have an electric pump out there, is the landlord paying for that bill or is the tenant paying for that bill? And fences, water sources, and control of noxious weeds. All of these things are negotiable. We have semi-retired or retired landowners that may be in a degree of health that allows them to upkeep some of these things. Maybe they have a tenant coming in from a long ways away to that site, and as part of that, they're able to be able to take care of those. They're not necessarily taking the cattle in, but they're making sure things are all going okay for the livestock. And if that's the case, they may be able to get a little bit higher rent.
Overall, the statewide all land average value for the year ending February 1st, 2020 on average was about 3% higher, or about an $80 per acre increase in the prior year's value. This marks the first year-to-year increase since land values peaked in 2014. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Bill Dodd.
Thanks, Bill. This is the 42nd edition of this annual report. The publication seeks to provide unbiased information for ag industry professionals to utilize in making the most informed decisions. If you'd like to download the full report, we've got a link to it at the Market Journal website.